Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first regular meeting for March 2024. Hello to any that's watching online or reviewing the video at a later date. Before we call the roll, I'd like to invite our county manager to provide an invocation and lead us in the pledge.
For the word of God is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believes in the name of Jesus. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come together in meaningful discussion. We ask that you give our leaders the wisdom and knowledge and the community the support and faithfulness to continue to strive together, to work together, to build. Finally, Lord, we ask that you watch over our emergency responders. There's no greater calling than those who are willing to sacrifice themselves. Self-sacrifice for others is the highest calling. We just ask that you keep them safe. We thank you for this opportunity, Lord, as we continue to build something together. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sean. All righty. If you could, Emily, please call the roll.
Good morning. Commissioner Thayer?
Here.
Commissioner Schroeder?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson?
Here. All righty. We have a quorum. It's 9:02. The first item of business we have is approval of the agenda. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We have several items on consent. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the items on consent. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. All righty. Elected official, department head, staff reports. Sherry, did you have anything for us today? Rhonda? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rhonda Braun, Elbert County Clerk and Recorder. It's my honor and pleasure to serve the citizens of Elbert County, and we just got through with another election in 2024. So the presidential primary election, we ended up with around 11,400 voters, which was about a 50% turnout, which is really good for a primary election. We had 150 people vote in person, and most of our ballots come in by mail or drop box. I want to thank Maureen Duffy. She's here today with us, and she was our amazing election staff. We had some extra challenges running this election, and our election judges did a fabulous job, and we have a great team. I just want to read off our election judges for this election. We had Tracy Ducharme, Brad Eit, Susan Chick, Chris Hernecke, Art Weber, Alan Krennick, Sandy Navita, Karen Hart, Sunny Mills, Debbie Kirk, Danny and Beth Wilcox, Mary Wells, Gary Aspeslaw, Diana Edstrom, Candy Putch, Dee Pepper, and Juan Gallegos. It truly does take all those people to run an election. I want to thank Bill King for bringing us a meal for the Republican Party. Kathleen Conway brought us a meal for the Democrat Party, and we truly appreciate that. IT provided support, as did the commissioners, and I just want to thank all the other staff in the building down there, because we do have 3 other departments, and that takes a big share of my time and energy, and they just did a great job carrying on. The town of Elizabeth and the Elizabeth Fire Station at Singing Hills worked with us, placing our drop boxes, and our citizens really like using those, and just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No, thank you. Nope, thank you. Right, so, Sean, did we have anything from staff? No, okay, thanks. Alrighty, before we move to public comment, since this is our 150th anniversary year as a county, we've asked staff to pull items from the first year of our existence out of the minutes, just to kind of get a feel for what was going on here in the territory of Colorado 150 years ago, in the temporary seat of the county that was in Middle Kiowa. So again, it was the temporary seat for the county, and like all other temporary government programs, it continues to this day. But from the minutes on that day, there was a joint board meeting held with the Douglas County Commissioners pursuant to adjournment. Present were the same officers as yesterday, with Commissioner Radcliffe as chair, Mr. J.C. Ingersoll, the former treasurer of Douglas County, who appeared before the board and was interrogated as to the knowledge of a certain treasury book belonging to Douglas County. Mr. Ingersoll stated to the board that he had no knowledge of the book in question, never having received the book from his predecessor. After considerable discussion upon the matter, Commissioner Van Wormer moved that the investigation be postponed indefinitely. That motion was then withdrawn, and Commissioner Welding motioned that the investigation be indefinitely postponed. So we're still looking for that book, if anybody knows where it is, but somebody may have bought a share or two of IBM at the time. It might be worth millions, we don't know. And then the sheriff of Douglas County billed the amount of $101 for the boarding and keeping of a prisoner for 54 days. The county commissioners agreed to settle for 31 days in the amount of $1 per day. And then a bill was presented by the attorney P.P. Wilcox for $18 for rent due on the probate courthouse from December 1873 to March 1874. So we know costs have gone up quite a bit. So with that, we'll open for public comment. I know we have quite a few folks in the room today. If you are here to discuss Excel and the actions of surveyors and the presence of the sheriff's deputies, I'd ask that you hold that until after public comment, because we have that on as a discussion item. But do we have anybody here to talk on any other subject? Hey, Don.
Morning. Don Gray, 16,000 Highway 86. Just my general question. We heard anything from Excel yet? That's all I'm going to right now. The rest of it will be on the other end of this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. And we did not have anybody that wanted to be called, but we did have a couple of emails on a separate subject that, oh, sorry. You move very quietly.
19753 Wiedemeyer Road,
Yes.
here in Kiowa. I want to just talk a little bit about a much higher level. You guys have indulged me to make comments over here pretty regularly for the last 2 years, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the Sheriff's Department being here and Sheriff Norton for the concerns about Excels, but I'll keep this at a much broader set of comments right now. Random House Publishing last month published a book entitled Rural White Rage, The Threat to American Democracy. And while I have to recognize that as our pledge indicated, we're a constitutional republic and not a democracy. But that book is alarming. One of the things I've added to a lot of comments over the years here regarding the power lines is that it's a much bigger issue than the Bijou Basin, where my passion is, Elbert County, eastern Colorado, much bigger issue than the West. It's a national issue right now, and that book addresses that at what many pundits, comments about it have said that it's downright slanderous. I watched an interview on guess where, MSNBC, of these authors who slandered rural America. And I know you three. I know Sheriff Norton. I've been acquainted with predecessors. I've been immersed in rural America my whole life. I've got a ranch in the family that was started over 100 years ago. I've met a lot of rural people. I've never met one that's a threat to our democracy. I've met a lot of people that are defenders of it. So, but a heads up on this book that from the interview that MSNBC did on these authors, it was just slanderous, missing the point. On the radio on the way in, there was a comment made that government will take any power we allow it to have, which it will. And the county commissioners here have been cooperative with limiting that power. And this pending bill, is it still pending or has it been given a bill number? But that's grabbing power away from local control to centralized state government. And the threat to democracy is the consolidation and ever-increasing power of centralized government.
Commissioners, that's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Do we have anyone else? Okay, thank you, and we'll actually, before I move on to these, just to Mr. Gray, we have not received any application at this point, and your question, Mr. Hughes, the bill that would take siting for transmission and green energy production out of the hands of local governments has not been introduced yet. So we're keeping an eye on that. But once there's a bill, there's an ability to push back against a bill. Right now, it's just a bad idea that we push back against. So we'll keep everybody in the loop when that bill does hit. So we did receive a couple of letters on another subject that I think were spawned from some comments that were posted on the internet regarding a study session we had on the 29th of February that is available for people to review. But first was from Mr. Ron Korsch. It reads, locking development fees for 10 years would be an extremely unfair or corrupt action to the citizens of Elbert County, essentially transferring financial burden to the citizens of the county as inflation increases costs. Instead of locking developer fees, they should be indexed to what the actual financial impact to the county is at the time of construction. The second is from a Mr. C.J. Patton, and it reads, freezing impact fees that are already too low definitely hurts the county. Too much growth already that hasn't been paid for, what they were supposed to do. We can't continue at this pace for fire and police safety. So those were the two comments that came in on that subject. You guys like to say anything about that?
Yeah, the county has existing resolution regulations that specifies that on an annual basis, the building fees and those other kind of fees are to be increased at the CPI. And every 5 years or 4 years, I can't remember exactly which of the two, you can conduct a study, it's called a nexus study, that provides the opportunity to reestablish the base from which in the following years there will be a CPI adjustment. So the concerns that are expressed here are valid, except that there is a solution in place.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's unfortunate when people, I guess, summarize for whatever purpose they choose to summarize another meeting. If anybody is interested in the discussion that was had. We did have a developer approach and ask to discuss locking fees for periods of time for a development. It was a study session. We listened. I think if anybody who reviews the video would see that we were kind of holding the line we always have, that, you know, development does need to pay for itself. Locking fees doesn't make sense. There's a plethora of reasons why we wouldn't. One is we don't want every individual development to have a different set of rules and to have staff trying to figure out when a building permit is pulled, what rules they're operating under. As Grant said, our policy is the statutory nexus study essentially allows us to set what the impact fees are, and then between studies, they escalate by CPI, and that's not just for big developers, it's for anybody that wants to develop their property, build a home in this county. So it's a little disappointing when people mischaracterize and then put out on Facebook things that are inflammatory and are meant to serve whatever purpose they're serving. But that meeting, if anybody is interested, is available there's a video meetings button on the county website. We don't do anything secretively. I think there was an allegation that it was held at an odd time. We hold our land use meetings and regular board meetings second and fourth Wednesday of every month. Other meetings that are requested that have 2 or more commissioners present are generally held as study sessions when calendars allow in this room, and they're recorded and live and broadcast. So if people want to watch that, they can, and I think they'd have a different view of what that meeting was actually about than what was characterized on social media. So thank you for that. With that, I'll close public comment, and we'll move on to our first discussion item. And this is a discussion of citizens' concerns regarding the engagement of deputies for private security. And I do have a short letter that was sent that kind of frames the discussion, but it reads, and this is from Roger Schultz, and his information is provided. Excel has been sending survey crews out to properties along their preferred route, accompanied by an off-duty uniformed Elbert County Sheriff's deputy in a county patrol car. When questioned, the deputy admitted the Sheriff's Department was being paid by Excel to provide security, and that if any property owners created a problem, he would handcuff them and call for an on-duty officer to arrest them. And yet, Excel has not submitted an application to the county. I'm opposed to this violation of our rights, and I think that seems to be the mood I've heard from several folks. But we had received a letter and requesting that the sheriff address it during this meeting. So before we get to that, I would like the county attorney to kind of walk through the statutory authorities for surveyors for boundary surveys on people's properties.
Sure. There's Bart Greer, county attorney. There's a pretty specific statute on what's allowed and what is not with regard to surveying like or similar circumstances. And in particular, the statute that looks to be applicable is 18-4-515, and it allows for a licensed land surveyor to do surveys on private land with regard to boundary evidence and figuring out where boundaries are for that particular property. There are prerequisites for doing that as far as notice is concerned. Okay, so notice must be sent out in order to be compliant with this statute at least 14 days prior to the proposed boundary survey. And I want to continue to say boundary survey because that's what is allowed. Surveys beyond the boundaries is not specifically provided for within the statute. And essentially, if that notice is provided, a landowner could contact the party that says they're going to be conducting a survey, and they can change the time and date to a time that's convenient for them. If they do not respond to that notice, it is possible for that survey team to come out and do that survey after a period of 14 days, provided that notice is given. There's a whole bunch of other requirements, such as a requirement that they carry identification upon their persons, and also kind of identifying themselves on behalf of their employer or their principal is the particular language used in the statute. So that's the specific statute that I believe these surveys or the surveyors are relying on. I have looked into the case law on that. Obviously, the county has received some comments of concern on that, but that is the specific statute that relates to the boundaries survey themselves.
And not to beat a dead horse, but it's boundaries only, not fence lines, gates, structures, vegetation, slopes.
Yeah, that's correct. It talks about surveys, but it talks about boundary lines specifically. Okay, so that is what is allowed. Does not talk about specific provisions for anything beyond boundary line surveys. So I can unequivocally state that fact, is that it should be for boundaries, and that's what the purpose of this statute is for.
We'll continue on that. I just wanted to kind of set the baseline of where we were legally. Do you have any questions for? No. Yeah, and I guess the other just being, I think we can all sit here together and scratch our heads and wonder why it appears under the statute that any one of us could engage a surveyor to go onto anybody's property for no good reason other than I'd like you to survey the boundaries of them. There doesn't seem to be any requirement for a property interest, a pending sale, anything that would provide a reason, but it is the law. So I don't think it's good law, and it's something that we can address through our Commissioners Association, perhaps in the next legislative cycle, to get some definition of why anybody would think it's okay to allow a profession of any type to just come onto your property and do their job unbidden and unwanted. But with that, Tim, I'd like to invite you up to kind of walk through kind of how this was handled on your side.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Norton, Elbert County Sheriff. Our dealings with XL started many months ago after they had a public meeting in Simla at the Simla High School. We were not in attendance to that, but what we were told by citizens and XL is that things got a little hot and heavy, and they canceled the meeting because they were in fear of disruption occurring. So they canceled that meeting. They had a meeting here at Kiowa Fairgrounds. They asked us to provide security. We provided security at that meeting, and it was calm. It was peaceful. In the meantime, we've been asked to support security on two different occasions. One a week ago Monday, and one prior in the similar area with a surveyor crew as well. The first thing I ask is when I'm contacted by the surveying company, have you followed your procedures of sending them a letter, and have you had responses, and what the statute says? I'm told by the surveying company that letters have been sent. In the meantime, everything was good to go on their behalf, and they're abiding by the statute. I told the surveyor, we are there to keep the peace only. We're not there to agree with you or disagree with you. I live out east, and I know the frustration that all these people have. I would too. I'm just saying that, but it's my job to keep the peace, to make sure nobody gets hurt, and protect people's rights. When we were contacted on this last case a week ago Monday, I asked the same questions. Everything was good to go. They hired one deputy. They pay for the deputy. They pay for the use of the county vehicle and the equipment used. This was about a 4.5-hour project, I guess we can call it, project. And the deputy was contacted by several residents, and he did tell them that we're there just to keep the peace, to make sure nobody gets hurt and nothing happens. The way I post the job is after the employer, whoever it may be, whether it's XL, Stampede, any event in the county, and they would like security, they contact me. I ask specific questions about the event, and we decide on how many deputies they would think they're going to need for their event. And I then tell them what the rate is, which is $65 an hour for an off-duty officer. 5 of that goes to the county per hour for the use of the vehicle. We came up with that rate based on the surrounding areas around us for an off-duty rate. Denver PD pays $100, but I think, me personally, I think that's a little excessive. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that I'm one of the only sheriffs or police departments around that charge a fee for the use of a county vehicle and county equipment while we're doing that. The posting goes up in the office, a deputy signs up for it, he's assigned the job, he is told where to go, what time to be there, and who to contact, as if this past Monday, or a week ago Monday, excuse me. I don't think it is appropriate for the sheriff's office to support or promote the private entity of XL. However, I can't ignore the fact that somebody's coming to me, asking me for security for their protection and their safety. I think it's my duty, the sheriff, to anybody who comes to me and asks for security or protection in a matter, no matter what it is. I think it's my duty to step up and make sure that legally and that I can perform those duties to help that person or persons out. I'm sure there'll be questions that I'll be able to answer, but just for you all too is, if you come up with other questions, I have business cards here that I'd be happy to give to you if you would like to reach out to me at a later date, time, and we can either talk it over the phone or we can meet in person and discuss any other questions or concerns you may have.
Okay, thank you. Actually, Tim, if you wanted to join us up here, that'd probably be smoother, and then, just share a mic, but appreciate you coming in today to discuss the matter. And just so it's clear, it is up to the, it's a voluntary off-duty assignment for your deputies, and it's your discretion whether you accept.
Yes, sir, it is voluntary.
Okay, thanks. So with that, I'll open this for public comment if we have any, and would just ask that make comment if you have questions. Tim will just kind of collect questions and wait till everybody's had a chance to speak, and then answer, so we're not in a lengthy back and forth. But thank you, Don.
Again, Don Gray, 16,000 Highway 86. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Sheriff. I got into the tail end of this episode that happened on the Monday that we're speaking of. I spoke to your deputy personally after he had already rode with the surveyors on 2 other previous properties. I got their call. I met him at one of my neighbors. He comes down the driveway and he's transporting the surveyors. That seems wrong to me. It seems like that the sheriff's department is supporting XL in this endeavor. If he's hired by them, that doesn't mean he gives them transportation. My property personal, the surveyors, I made them walk everywhere. They weren't even allowed to park in my driveway. I made them walk. they're going to play the game that they're playing using the statutory survey against us, then I'm going to make it as difficult as I can for them to do that. That being said, that doesn't imply that I'm threatening anybody. I was at every one of these meetings that we're speaking to. There was never any threats that were given other than that was what was perceived by Excel. They come to you and asking for protection. I get that. But I don't think that we have to have the how can I put this? The impression that the Sheriff's Department is supporting this in any way whatsoever. The deputy was very cordial when I spoke to him. He gave me a heads up. He told me that if I overreacted, that he would handcuff me and call for an on-duty officer to come take me. I was just asking the question of what would happen because he was off duty. To the county attorney question, yeah, they say they sent out the notices, but if is that the law that's required? They send the notice or you receive the notice? That's what I can't get a clear answer on. Excel is telling me they've sent them, but if somebody has been sent something and hasn't received it, do they still have the right to trespass on those properties? We have one individual that had no knowledge of any of this happening, no receive, no anything, and they show up and he has a confrontation with surveyors and the deputy stating that they have the right to do this because they're in the easement. Well, there is no easement. The easement's not established yet. So, I mean, that question goes to you, Bart. I appreciate an answer.
I had one question for you. You said the surveyor was transported in the sheriff's vehicle?
That is correct. Okay. And I asked the deputy if that was normal, and he obviously shook him up because he got caught. And I didn't want, that's not, I'm not trying to put him on the spot, but that seems wrong to me that the county is supporting this endeavor in that regard.
So I can say that the statute specifically says at least 14, and I'll read verbatim, at least 14 days before the desired date of entry, the professional land surveyor shall cause such notice to be given to the landowner by certified mail, return receipt requested, and by regular mail.
That is correct. Now,
So it doesn't say anything in particular about must be received, must be signed for, anything like that. It just says that notice has to be effectuated in those two manners, either by registered mail or regular mail, quite frankly. So that's what they're supposed to do.
Well, if they do that and it's not received, I mean, that's where it becomes which came first, the chicken or the egg. Because if they don't receive it, then they just can go do whatever they want after that 14-day notice. They're saying they did this. I mean, we could get into the woods.
Did you receive your notice?
I did receive mine, yes. But there are individuals that never receive the notice.
I think the point's valid. I think let's kind of collect the issues, and I mean, this could
Move
go
forward.
all morning.
Absolutely.
If we're going back and forth on it.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Do we have anybody else? Sir.
Eric Giblets, 19656 Wiedemeyer Road. First off, I'd like to say that I'm against this XL Denver-Boulder Power Pathways. Number two, I'm a strong proponent of law enforcement. Number three, I am against police state tactics, intimidation, being used by XL's subcontractors to intimidate our citizens. I believe the sheriff's job is to actually protect and keep peaceful for the citizens, not private contractors. I understand the whole human factors behind having something escalate into something not good. But the impression being given is the fact that the Elbert County is being used as a police state to allow XL to go ahead and build their pathway via the surveyors at this point. What's next? The storage of equipment, putting those towers on somebody's property, you know, and is the sheriff gonna sit there and say, no, you have to have this? I mean, it just looks bad. It's not good. And sometimes I don't even recognize our country. It's just, this is crazy. You know, we have private property rights. And sometimes, even if I post a no trespassing sign, you know, they only get coverage to that gate, period. If I say no, no is no. Very simple English. The other thing that concerns me is, yes, you're getting paid back by those, you know, and when I worked, you know, normally, if I use my own private vehicle, I'd be reimbursed 60 cents a mile. And from what I see, we are selling ourselves cheap, because that, you know, what'd you say, $65 a day or an hour? An hour. Okay, I still think that if they're gonna use us as a chauffeur to allow surveyors access and intimidate that citizen, whether they say anything or not, just the appearance of a sheriff and those guys getting out of the back of the car with their gear, you know, what is a private citizen supposed to do? We're all law-abiding citizens. I mean, you know, we respect what goes on, and we respect law enforcement. But when law enforcement is being used for a private entity, that doesn't seem to make sense to me, whether you're getting paid or not. Now, if that off-duty sheriff, deputy sheriff, comes in his uniform in his own car and has security or even one of those orange vests, at least that's not Elbert County with the appearance of condoning, in my opinion, trespassers. You know, whether you received the notice or not, don't you have the right?
Please turn around and speak to the podium.
What's that?
Please turn around so we can hear you.
You speak in the microphone.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, just so we capture it.
But anyways, that's my biggest concern is the fact that, you know, I don't like people on my property. I wouldn't want to see a load of migrants come across my fence. And as a human, I have the right to protect my property. I have the right to say, no, this is not right, and I will fight it. So, thank you for your time.
Do we have anyone else? Ma'am.
Debbie Cromer, 24372, County Road 122. Two things. I wanted to ask the sheriff, what is the mechanism for increasing the rate on the vehicles? $5 an hour, and I'm assuming that the sheriff's department is paying gas. You guys are losing money. So the $60 part, you know, that's another thing, but might want to revisit that $5 thing. Secondly, it appears to me that, and I've attended all of the Excel, including the SIMLA thing. I was there for an hour and 15 minutes. I saw nothing. So whatever happened with them calling the sheriff happened after that. But I suspect that was because the whole group of Excel people at that meeting were basically telling people who were coming there to voice their opinion and find out what Excel was up to. They told them pretty much this decision's been made. So these have all been just for show. They said that at the meeting. So I think that probably would have gotten people riled up. And it appears to me that Excel is creating this whole problem by putting the cart in front of the horse. They don't have any documentation that they put to Elbert County to get this approved. I don't know why they get to come out and do the surveys anyway, because nothing has been approved. It's kind of like, well, we'll just keep going until it's too late for people to stop us because we've already done all this work. So that's not the sheriff's department, but that's just, I think we need to open our eyes and kind of stand up on our hind legs with Excel and say, either you guys submit a plan for what you're doing, because I'm I mean, I've heard their preferred route, which was never any consideration of all the meetings last summer. There were 5 different routes. That wasn't one of them, so they just pulled that out of their back pocket. And I think that they shouldn't be able to do the surveying stuff if the route hasn't been approved. So.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone, sir?
Morning, I'm Jay Stretcher, 30012 Highway 24, Rama. And they've been doing the soil sampling just to the west of my property. And they stopped on 24 yesterday and came up to me and asked me if they could have permission to park in my driveway. And I said sure, because I didn't think I had any say in the matter, whether I do or not. I just want to, for the record, state that I'm against this power line, but I told them yes, because I was concerned about their safety of parking on 24 and unloading and loading their equipment. But they didn't come onto my property. They left their equipment parked on 24 and unloaded it and loaded it. No, I don't think that's very safe. The reason I gave them permission to park on my property was for their safety and the public safety. I don't think that they should be able to park out on the highway, out on 2486, for the safety of the public and their own safety.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else? Sir?
Commissioners, Sheriff, thank you for showing up. My name's Mark Knipe. I live down on 17274 Highway 86. On March 4th, approximately 10 o'clock, I'm one of the individuals that has not been served by certified mail, notified by XL at all. According to the statutes, it says you can be oral or in writing. I have not received none of that. On this morning, there was 2 vehicles at my front gate. When I approached the front gate, I saw one of your deputies. My front gate is open. I have signs posted, no trespassing. He proceeded to tell me that these were XL employees and they have every right on my land. So by this time, the 2 individuals were already 3/4 away down my fence line. So I couldn't do anything. Their vehicle was parked inside my property off my driveway. I took pictures of the truck with out-of-state plates on it. When the individuals came up, I tried to get pictures of them. They tilted their head down. So I had no idea who these trespassers were. Went to your office, tried to file trespassing charges. The deputy there basically told me, you know as well as I do, it's a piddly offense, it's a misdemeanor. I said, I understand that, but I still would like to. He asked me if there was names. I could not get any individuals' names. After further research, these people were not XL employees, they were a survey company. I found the names in the company. I went back on the 6th to file charges. Spoke with another deputy. You have a great force with working underneath you. At that time, he was going to ask a sergeant. Come back, there was no sergeant on duty. He gave me a card, Sergeant Moore. I asked your deputy if he would stand by while I made this call. I put him on speaker. Sergeant Moore answered the phone, and I proceeded to identify myself and the reason I was calling. Sergeant Moore, after there was 2 other sergeants that all agree, Turner is one, and Sergeant Sanders. when the sergeant asked me about the charges, he said, if the deputy has enough evidence to file. The deputies told him it's about escorting XL. At that point, Sergeant Moore told me over the phone, they're allowed on your land, you have an easement. The county approved it. So at this point, I did some more investigation. I went to different offices to ask if there was a right-of-way, an easement, and I was told no. I was also asked, is there a roadway? I said, no. So, therefore, my opinion is, if a citizen has a complaint, the department needs to take that down. That's why we have a court system.
Commissioners, that's 4 minutes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That's okay. Generally, we restrict to 3 minutes, but if you have more.
Oh, okay. I just thank you for your time.
No, and I appreciate that. So, do we have anyone else? Sir.
Brad Ray, 17112 Highway 86. My property is adjacent to Mark Knipes. I was also one of the people contacted by the sheriff's deputy, off-duty sheriff's deputy, in a county vehicle, in uniform, armed, and on the day of the survey. I was surprised to find that he was the first person I encountered. Came a quarter mile up on my driveway. I happened to be in my barn office. My wife notified me that there was a sheriff's deputy in the driveway. And when I went out, I guessed it was probably associated with the survey. But I went out, talked with him, found that the surveyors were actually in the back of my property, where I was not able to see them, already conducting their survey work. He tells me that he is there to make sure nobody gets shot. I said, well, did anybody threaten to shoot anybody in this situation that you're here on my property? And I'm assuming at this time that he is actually operating under his position as an Elbert County deputy and not a rent-a-cop at the county's expense or at the taxpayer's expense. He said, no, there were no threats made or anything like that. I'm just making sure that nothing happens here. Now, two things. One is, I should have been notified, if that person is going to serve as an escort to these people, I should have been notified before those people were ever on my property, wandering around. Because if he's there to enforce, basically provide muscle for XL Energy, I dang well should have been notified, because somebody could have very easily been hurt in that situation had I seen those people without having first been notified that they were on my property. Number two, the fact that he presented himself without notifying me that he was off duty is a form of intimidation, because I am assuming I am dealing with a county entity and actual law enforcement, and that this is a sanctioned, going to happen event. I feel like my rights were violated, because my intent when I was notified by XL Energy, and after talking with the survey company, was I was going to refuse them access to my property and allow them to contact the sheriff to escort them onto my property or get a proper court order to come onto my property. But it wasn't going to be as easy as sending me a certified letter in the mail saying, we're coming on your ground. In the effort to support the taking of your ground by a corporate entity in cahoots with the state of Colorado and their power initiative. I was denied that right. I'm also here to support Mark, who was probably too modest to say that he's a 20-year law enforcement veteran, retired. He knows how this stuff works. And the last thing he's going to do is do something against the law. And I feel like he should have been able to file his charge as a trespass. And I would also like to ask the county attorney if he could please find out from XL Energy were any other data points taken besides boundary data points while they were on our property. Because in my discussion with the survey company, when I received notification that they would be on our property, I called him and I said, I think you're actually here to get more than just boundary data points. I think you're here to get points to describe the land you intend to take.
Commissioners, that's time.
He did not deny that. He said that what he was there for was to establish a description of what will be presented to us by Excel as what they intend to take. Not boundary only. They're taking the points at which they plan to take the property and describe it legally so that they can initiate proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else? Okay. Oh, okay, we do have two. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious. I'm Sonny Connor, and it's 40388 Moonstone Court. And I just wanted to know if there was a written speech or if there were guidelines set for what the deputies would say, because how you present something can be, really get somebody's dander up, or they can ask more questions. They can feel comfortable asking more questions. I am not a threat having these people come on my property because I'm far away, but I really support everyone whose property is going to be in danger. I agree with everything that's been said this morning and the anger that's there, but I just wondered if that came from you, Sheriff, or if they just made up their own little spiel. And I think we shoot out where we live, but nobody shoots anybody. I just don't understand where a deputy would think that, except there is some property, we are all being squeezed by the frickin' government. So anything at this point in our lives, taking our property or even being on our property is a really, really sensitive issue. More so than 10 years ago. I mean, you'd be a lot more, but XL wouldn't be doing this 10 years ago either, I don't think. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I just wanted to know if there was some basic instruction for the gentlemen that are volunteering their time and, well, they're getting paid. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There was another gentleman. Yes.
My name's David Healy. I live at 2795 Gold Creek Drive, Elizabeth. This has been an eye-opener. I came with some comments to make, and they were kind of general, which you guys generally can't do much about except smile and nod your heads and whatever. But this has been quite an eye-opener. For one thing, I want to say I just looked up on my phone. The IRS mileage rate these days is 67 cents a mile. So if you're charging $5 an hour, it doesn't take too long to get up to $5 at 67 cents per mile if you're escorting around. Maybe charge them hourly plus mileage like so many contractors do. That's pretty common, especially for us folks that live out here in a rural area, and contractors have to drive a long way to get to your house. So it might be something worth considering. But all I can say is this is an eye-opener because Excel's pretty aggressive about this. It might also be pointed out that when they say they're paying the sheriff's department, I agree that, and they're probably covering your costs, but it's not like coming out of thin air. We're paying for that because Core gets most of its electricity from Excel. So you're paying for all that through your rates. Just don't fool yourself. But they're going to be very, very aggressive. I can tell. I didn't realize they had taken it this far, and it's something that I realize we have limited things we can do at this time. I think what they're doing is intentionally holding off on introducing these bills to shorten the time frame for people fighting it. And they're doing all this legwork first. I didn't realize all that was going on. So they're planning on taking a lot of land at some point. One last comment. I just read something yesterday that just stunned me. The BLM has introduced something called the Western Power Plan. And it's a plan to put massive amounts of solar in 9 western states. And the proposal goes anywhere from 8 million acres to 55 million acres, which is about the size of Minnesota. That's how much power they want to put in solar energy. And their preferred number is somewhere in the 20s, so that's like half the size of Minnesota. There's some big plans here, and we want to get out ahead of this, because just imagine. One more comment about solar. I drove up by that massive solar facility that's just to the west of the Kiowa-Bennett Road, and I noticed this big water tower, and I say, why do they need all this water for solar? Apparently they have water trucks that go around and wash those things on a regular basis. So solar facilities use a lot of water. And of course, they also need transmission lines over our property. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else? Sir.
Darrell Littlefield, 27454, County Road 113. I got several concerns here. Usually, all the research I've done on the statutes for this survey says that there was some kind of legal process that was engaged before the letters went out. Court hearing or something of that nature. I'm not specifically familiar with the one that you spoke about this morning, but all of the statutes that I've read and researched so far said that there was some legal proceeding that went before the letters went out, okay? Some kind of a plan, some kind of proceeding that would go through a court or something else before these people were allowed to go on and do a boundary search. Every one of them that I read was that way. And you're the expert on this, you're the attorney, but everything I read said that there would be some sort of legal proceeding before this was granted. We're in this county in the United States of America are granted something in property ownership that's called fee simple ownership of property. And you're taking that away by not following a legal proceeding to come on to somebody's property. And that's the way I interpret it. I've had my fee simple rights taken away from me by the county before, and I've fought that all the way up to the state Supreme Court level and won. But I'm believing here that, again, we are encroaching on people's rights in the county for fee simple ownership of real estate, okay? These guys should have been notified of times, dates, everything else, and that statute right there says that one of the things they could do was return receipt mail to make sure these people were notified, okay? And yes, it also says the regular mail, but fee simple ownership is something that we are supposed to have in the United States, and that's getting taken away. Whatever reason that these people are coming on this property is not for the public benefit.
Commissioners, that's time.
Thank you, sir. Alrighty, do we have anyone else? Okay, with that, I'll close public comment. Guess there were, I'll turn it to you, Tim. There were some specific questions or things, if you'd like to roll through those.
Absolutely, and I took some notes here, and if I missed a few, I apologize, but I'll start off with Mr. Gray's comments of transporting and handcuffing, along with Ms. Connors, whether there was speech or not. There was no speech given to these deputies who work these events. their duty from me is just keep the peace. Don't let everything bad happen or try to prevent it. That's our job, is to prevent it. Mr. Gray's, the transporting and handcuffing thing, I questioned a deputy who said that to you. And his statement to me was, quote, that when he was leaving, the surveyor gentleman was still there. He felt that there was going to be issues if he left out the driveway and him still being there. That's why he offered a guy a ride out of the driveway. And the handcuffing comment was like, and I don't know if it was you who asked him or another resident who asked him, is what happens? Well, if things do get out of hand, we would have to put people in handcuffs. Then an on-duty person would have. That's the only mention that he said of handcuffs, if things got out of hand. He took it upon himself to try to make contact with all the homeowners involved, four residents, I believe it was. He took it upon himself to notify the homeowners, or try to. I believe he said he wasn't able to make contact with one. To make sure he knew that they knew what was going on, why we were here, and he would, if they had any questions for him, I guess. He offered business cards to, I believe, a couple different residents, and Mr. Grays, I believe you got one of them too. He did tell me that there was a resident, and I'm not sure which resident it was, I'm sure I can find out, that told him that, well, it's good for them that you're here, because it could have been a bad day for those people if you weren't here. And the sheriff's office is not supporting Excel. I can promise you that. I'm not supporting it. My people aren't supporting it. I'm there just to keep the peace. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want any issues that could come down in litigation at a later time. That's my sole purpose there. It's just like if anybody else came to me asking me to provide security at a different event, it's the same thing. Going on the rates, we've had talks with the commissioners this week about raising our our rates on that issue as well. We're trying to work out a reasonable fee for using the county equipment. The deputy rate will probably stay the same, but the use of the vehicle equipment that rate will probably go up, especially for a business, and will probably, and like I said, we're still in talks, but a nonprofit organization that hires us would be maybe a little different. Sir?
Who writes the check?
XL sends a check to our office. Our office brings it to the county finance department. They take their portion out for the equipment and vehicle, then they cut a check for the deputy. Yes, the off-duty?
Or the off-duty was paid by the county?
Well, after being reimbursed by
The county was paid by the contractor, the subcontractor.
Correct.
How many of these escorts has your department done?
Two. We've done one, this one that we're just now talking about, and we've done one in a similar area a few months ago. I don't have the exact date. And they don't last all day. They're roughly 4.5 hours, and then we leave.
Yeah, if we could let Sheriff Norton get through the first round of questions, so if back and forth isn't captured on the mic, if people want to.
My deputy felt he was doing the residents a favor by letting them know we're here, so there's no surprises. And I think I asked, Ms. Connor answered, there was no speech given to give to him. He was just doing what he thought was right, to tell people we're here, we don't want any problems, that's why we're here. I covered the rates that we're going to do that. The incident at the Simla High School, we were not there. The sheriff's office was not called. That was Simla PD. Simla PD is the one that reached out to us to tell us what happened out there, and that if there's any more meetings, which apparently he knew about, just be prepared, you'll probably be getting a call at that location. Mark, when you contacted the 3 sergeants about filing trespass charges, I'm not sure if they knew about this case law, or not case law, but this statute involving surveyors. I'm not sure they're aware of that, or were aware of it. They are aware of it now, so. I get Sergeant Moore. I was talking about Sergeant Sanders and Sergeant Turner.
Yeah, I didn't have any interaction with them, so I was told that they knew about it.
Okay, well, I will look into that, and I will give you my card, and you can reach out to me after I talk to those 2 gentlemen as well.
As far as I went to send the email to the commissioners, but unfortunately something happened and didn't get the email. There was pictures of the vehicle on my property. So I'm still kind of curious about the trespass charges.
Well, to me, I think it's in the statute that the county attorney read. But, and again, I don't verify if you received the certified letter or not. They tell me they send a letter, they got returned, whatever it is. That's all we base our decision on, where they're going.
Yeah, and if there's other further one-on-one discussion with the sheriff after this, I think that's.
Sure. And I think I covered all the comments that were, or questions made, but if not, I'm here afterwards. I'll be here.
And I know, thank you. Bart, there were a couple that were directed at you. One was, I think if we could reach out to Excel and find out, or at least ask the question, I doubt they will be forthcoming, whether other additional data was taken other than about.
Yeah, I can ask the question. I highly doubt I will get a response.
Please do. And then there was one other, and I don't recall. I think it was discussed again, and I think you mentioned it earlier that the statute doesn't actually require proof of receipt, but I think that would be unfortunately, the specific letter of the law may not say that. I think it's reasonable. Reasonable people would think that that's what it means. I would think in the future, if this was to be done again, we, as a policy, and again, we fund the sheriff's operations. We certainly don't direct law enforcement operations. That was what Tim was elected to do. But I would personally like to see policy that there be proof that receipt was made before we send somebody on. I'm a little concerned that we did, because of the way this was done, and I think it was being done with all the best intention, that we potentially strip citizens of an opportunity for a day in court and perhaps clarification of the statute through the courts. So that is something we need to be cognizant of. You have any other comments up here?
No, you just addressed the one that gave me the most concern, is the comments about a legal proceeding and how that is implemented, when it is implemented, and who is it implemented by. So that's a curiosity question more than anything, because I don't know how to ask any more questions on that issue.
And just to echo what the sheriff said about evaluating fees, we have had those discussions, so that I think will be forthcoming as we're doing some investigation on what's an appropriate reimbursement rate for vehicles. So I again agree with the commissioners and what they've said.
Yeah, just on the rate piece, what we've kind of, in some research, so after the flooding this summer, I know this, it's a little trail to get there, but FEMA actually has a rate list for, that establishes the full cost of operation of vehicle types for federal reimbursements. I know the federal mileage rate was mentioned, but for a general purpose 4x4, which would essentially be our Tahoes or Dodge pickups, the FEMA reimbursement rate's almost $28 an hour, and that covers fuel, wear and tear, maintenance, insurance costs. It's kind of the fully loaded cost. So that's kind of a start point. As Tim said, we don't want to price ourselves out of being able to provide reasonable security of traffic control for a nonprofit event or other things. So would likely look at a different scale. There was a question asked from the crowd on payment. The other little missing piece here is there are even though this is off-duty payment to a deputy, there's some administrative costs that are borne by the county that we should look at what's appropriate to capture, because as Tim described, a check is written by the person engaging the services. Those services have to be tracked, those hours have to be tracked in Tim's department. It comes over to finance. They have to process a check, they have to cut 1099s and a check to the deputy, so that there is administrative on-the-clock time that citizens are paying for that we've got to sit down and figure out how much of that should be, what is the real cost of that, and that should be passed on to those that are asking for the service. I do appreciate the comment that was made about identifying, deputies identifying that they're off duty at the time. I think that would clarify some things, but yeah, if you could come up to the mic, so if people are watching online or to capture later.
So the monies are going through the county from XL to the county. The county's letting their resources be used in this. Let's just say that something got out of hand. Who's liable for any damages and stuff? Is that the county at this point? Is that the officer himself that's supposedly off duty? Who's liable for anything that may happen? Okay, and I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying it begs the question, is the county liable for this at this point? Anyway, that's my question.
And sir, there are provisions with our insurer, and part of the capturing the costs through the finance department and the hours is those hours are reported to ensure that it's captured under workman's comp and others. I mean, law enforcement is always a slightly separate animal.
He's not actually a subcontractor then. He's still an employee of the county while he's doing this?
Still an employee, and again, I don't legally, I don't want to stray on this.
These are questions
but the insurance coverage, there is recognition that law enforcement does engage in this in general. Like, I mean, you'll see State Patrol sitting at a construction site with their lights flashing. That's generally the same. So, again, I'm not trying to confuse or dig deeper into this, but I recognize that there are county costs.
Okay. No.
There are pieces of county costs that probably are not being captured currently that need to be captured, so they're passed on.
$5 an hour and all that are probably not, it's not paying for the county insurance or the liability.
No, the $60, right now, $60 goes, per hour goes directly to the deputy, and $5 stays to the county for the use of the
county.
That clearly isn't.
If anything happened, car wreck or anything else that may have been caused by this, then the county's insurance is actually liable for all that?
Correct. So again, that's a piece of the part that's not being captured. That, again, it's interesting when events like this occur because they do allow us to dig much more deeply into policies that are in place.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Mr. Hughes.
I'm just wondering about what's our citizen takeaway from this? What if, or is the takeaway I kind of see is if somebody shows up, and I don't have any problem with the Sheriff's Department providing security on a paid-for basis that might be better than a private company because they're more answerable to the citizenry. But what's the takeaway for today? What I kind of see is somebody shows up with a deputy or without, say, I know you have a statutory right to come onto my property. You should provide notice, but you have a statutory right to survey for the property lines. Not 1 inch other than that. Not an inch. Is that the takeaway?
I believe that is. There's obviously other things we're working on our side to.
All right, so maybe we publish through our little community of resistance to this, the statute and the verbiage, and recommend that. You have to let them on for the property line issue? No more.
And again, if there's a desire to challenge the statute, that's an individual property owner's right. I think we need to be very careful that we preserve that by allowing refusal if that is what they choose to do.
And also express some empathy for Sheriff Norton. Oh, yeah. And the deputies. They have to make a tough judgment call. They've got keep the peace on one hand, but my heart's in the citizenry of Elbert County. That's a tough call. I've seen it, and I'm sure Sheriff Norton's seen it. Deputies usually make the right reaction, not always, So that's a tough one. I don't envy you your job, Sheriff Norton.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Hughes. Just to close this out and kind of take it a little away from the subject of the surveys, as we said, the application hasn't been received. I know there's some new faces in the room. We have a responsibility as a Board of County Commissioners when an application comes in to provide a fair hearing of it. So regardless of what our personal feelings may be, and we try not to signal those, it's our responsibility to our citizens to provide a fair hearing. If we do stray, or it looks like we've predetermined what a decision may be, or then we very well could lose the authority to make this decision for the county. So we have some freedom to take comment from folks prior to an application. Once an application is actually received, though, we're going to have to ask that people hold commentary on the issue until we're actually holding hearings. And it's another kind of statutory piece, but once an application is received, if we're taking what right now is public comment, it can be perceived as we're taking testimony on a pending application, and the applicant's not available or present to hear what's being said, and we've got to preserve that due process. So whatever our decision is made, whichever decision is made, we're preserving things for potential appeals on either side or other actions beyond that hearing. So just for those that haven't been here, I know it may feel like we're sitting here stone-faced, not expressing strong opinions, but I do agree with Mr. Healy's comment that XL has been incredibly aggressive throughout this. Even when they're not present, they seem to be present. So, and they may be watching now. So with that, I'm going to close out this item. I know the sheriff will be available to talk to anybody individually, and then we'll certainly be talking on policies that cross outside of law enforcement and into insurance and the fiduciary things that we take care of. Yeah. Yeah.
The gentleman that went to the sheriff's department to file the trespassing, Grant asked or made a statement about the legal, what the legal is, and I'm wondering if we can get a comment from our attorney about, is that the sheriff's decision to say we're not going to file, even though you want to file a trespassing? How do we get the legal part of this?
believe the county attorney answered that by saying it's already state statute on what we can do and can't do. To change that. Yes, well. I don't know that. So.
Okay. Yeah, and for this one specifically, I'd have to ask you to discuss with the sheriff, and then if it's a criminal trespass, it's outside the county attorney's purview. It would be the district attorney or an ADA that was making determinations above that. So. Mike, come on up.
Mike Buck, 39255 Private Road 17. Wasn't planning to speak today. Definitely want to go on the record of being against the power lines, but also wanted to support the sheriff today. My question is this: Excel hasn't submitted a formal application. They're probably waiting for the legislation to go through the state legislation, or state legislators, to take away the rights of the county. So you know they have lobbyists that are lobbying on their behalf down at the Capitol. Is there any concerted effort by the county or a county coalition with some of the other counties to preserve those rights at the county level? Do we have any lobbyists speaking on our behalf down at the Capitol?
Absolutely, and you've probably got 64 counties that feel the same way. So the County Commissioners, Inc., or County, yeah, it is County Commissioners, Inc., CCI, Colorado Counties, Inc., is kind of our professional organization and has lobbyists. And so there's been several Zoom calls, large meetings, small meetings, pushing back on this. I can say I have heard that even the green energy providers don't care for the bill because they believe it goes so far that there'll be huge backlash. So I can't tell you where it's at now, but I can assure you that this county and the other, there's 63 of the 64 counties are members of CCI, will be pushing back hard on this, as we did with the governor's bid to take over land use in general last year. So that was fought down. It's coming back in many, many pieces that are being fought this year.
Well, we appreciate that, I'm sure. I hadn't heard about that. Is there maybe the connection page that you guys do? You could promote that a little bit more? Because from what I'm hearing, we're waiting for an application. And I'm not hearing that backstory to give you guys credit that there is that lobbying going on in the background. I'd love to hear about that and have that published and let the citizens know that you guys are working on behalf of the county.
We'll certainly do that, but it's also widely reported in the press. So
okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. There's usually 600 plus bills that go through each legislative session, and this one's not even a bill yet. So.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have.
Pressing.
I just wanted a clarification. I know they're lobbying hard to take away those rights, so I just wanted to make sure we were fighting back equally as hard. Thanks.
All right. Thank you much. We are going to move on to just this one should be much quicker. It's just a discussion regarding a methadone treatment contract for the jail.
So as I've discussed during the last several meetings, this is something that I've asked for some changes to be made after our prior provider apparently was no longer able to provide that service. I finally got a response at the end of the day yesterday asking me to make those changes. I can certainly do that, but I was not. That request wasn't made until yesterday, evening, basically. And I still have some questions that need to be answered before I can make changes. Okay. So I will be making those inquiries to the Sheriff's Department to get those questions answered. I've already posed those questions, but I'll try to get answers to those questions. Okay. And then I would anticipate that if I'm the one that's drafting it, I have control over it. I can certainly get that done once I get those questions answered.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments in the room on this one? It's a requirement that if somebody becomes an inmate in the jail is undergoing methadone treatment, that we have a mechanism to continue that. It's very rare, but we have a gap right now we're trying to fill. So moving on to action items. The first item we have is consideration of the February 28th, 2024 minutes. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the February 28, 2024 minutes as written and dispense with the reading of those minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the February 28th meeting minutes and dispense with the reading. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Second item we have is consideration of approval of the BOCC budget guidance for 2025. This was sent out in draft and has been circulated around the county for a few weeks now. I think we have it finalized, but essentially this just provides broad guidance to the finance department and all the other departments that are putting together their budgets for what we're looking at next year. We're always in about 3 budget years. The audit for 23 is ongoing. We're in the budget year of 24 and we're starting into looking at 25. So, any questions or comments on? Okay. Anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the BOCC budget guidance for 2025 as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the BOCC budget guidance as presented for 2025. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. The next is consideration of approval of the updated finance policy. This has been under discussion for the last several meetings. It cleans up some processes that have changed either via statute or just simplifying and streamlining the way we do business finance-wise. The one significant change was some very specific guidance on how bid processes are handled and moving that under the specific control of finance versus various departments that we're putting out bids, just to ensure that we have consistency across the county on how those processes are handled. Did we have anything to add on the staff side from that, Sean? No.
I would like to have the finance department leader come and recommend approval.
Tiffany, I didn't see you in the room earlier.
He was hiding.
All right.
Morning.
All right, if I said anything wrong, please correct me. And
No,
if you've got
you
any
are
more you
correct.
wanted to add, please.
No, that was
please
the
do.
majority of the changes and just putting some more forms together so that we're accurately following our policies that we have in place.
And you're comfortable with these adjusted policies?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'd accept a motion to approve the updated finance policy.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the updated finance policy as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the updated finance policy. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. All right, and finally, I know you've been waiting patiently throughout. We have consideration, ratification of 2 library appointments. For those that may not be aware, the library district is a separate local government. It was about 20 years ago a department of the county, but there was a vote taken to form it as a local government unto itself. But the way Colorado statute works is trustees that form the board of the library are nominated by new trustees are nominated by the board of trustees and brought forward to the county for ratification. It's a little bit different than any other local government. And because the trustees aren't directly elected by the people, that is also by statute once a year, the library will come and provide a state of the trust report to the Board of County Commissioners, and that was done at a previous meeting. But Ma'am, if you'd like to talk about your, if not, I'll just turn to my fellow commissioners and ask for a motion to approve or ratify the nominations of the library board.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to ratify Maral Hegemeyer and Sandy Nevada to the Pines and Plains Board of Trustees.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint two library trustees. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All righty. Board planning. I know we've got some regular items that come up regularly, great. For our next meeting, do we have anything specific you'd like to cover? No. Tiffany, if you could we get just a kind of a report out on just status of audit at the next meeting? I'd appreciate that. And then I know we were somewhat surprised, I think, across the eastern part of the state yesterday when Representative Buck announced that he's resigning his seat on the 22nd. That's going to force a special election, which appears that it's going to coincide with the primary in June, but maybe at the next meeting, if the dust is settled, if we could get a little information on how that may work or what problems that may cause. All right. Yeah. Well, that gets us started. It's going on 10:32. We're going to recess at this time. We've got two land use hearings or two land use applications to hear at 1 p.m. and that'll take place in this room. So thank you for coming out this morning. Sheriff Norton, I appreciate your giving us your time as well. So thanks all. We'll see you at 1.